I just had this absolutely massive panic attack.
Right.
And I had a couple of them in the interim, but I just woke up and I was just an absolute wreck. I was crying uncontrollably and just really in a massive panic attack. And sort of later that day, it was sort of the end of the road. I was like, right, that is it. I am not letting these people impact on me in this way anymore. Hi, I'm Donna.
And I'm Di. We are the Double Ds and welcome to the Discovery Diaries.
We acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we are recording this podcast. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and acknowledge their spiritual connection to family and storytelling.
Well, it's nice to be back in the studio, Donna, and it's also for our listeners maybe been a little while since our last podcast. But one of the things that we did talk about was actually an opportunity to share a bit of our story down the track. And just recently, one of the Double Ds, being Donna, who's sitting next to me, actually was in a position to share a bit of her story. Now, our podcast is all about resilience. It's about what are some of those stories of resilience and wellbeing and courage to keep showing up, I guess, and to, you know, that's looked like all sorts of different forms and stories that we've heard over the years, Donna. What would you like to announce to our listeners?
Oh, we're just for this episode of the Double Ds, it's the recording that I did for this other podcast, so the Thriving Business podcast. And it's the first time I've really told a big part of my sort of workplace-related lifequake, I call it. I did try and tell this story on another podcast probably around 2 years ago, and I just got completely emotional. I couldn't stop crying, and so I just couldn't do it back then. But it's time now to start telling my story, and so I felt good about sharing what I could of this story, and so that's why we're putting it onto an episode of the Double Ds today.
Well, I've had a listen, and so we hope that you will. I don't know if you'll enjoy it because it's a hard story, but I think you'll appreciate hearing it.
Yeah, and I mentioned quite a few of our previous guests as well who have inspired me greatly. Thanks, Di.
Welcome to Thriving Business, real stories and innovative insights to help you grow a business that truly thrives. I'm Kate de Jong.
And I'm Sam Morris.
Let's dive in. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Thriving Business podcast. This is our first episode for 2026, and I'm very, very excited to have a very special guest with me today, Donna West from Donna's Balcony Views. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Kate. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I've wanted to talk to you for a while, ever since I met you, actually, and do a deep dive into your work, which is lifequakes, and I think you came up with that term. Is that right?
I did. I've read the term somewhere else, but it really resonated with me when I read it. I was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm going through, and it's I think it's a good word to describe sort of going through an unexpected, sort of a sudden and unexpected traumatic life event, really.
Life-changing event, yeah. Yeah, so you support others to survive a lifequake. You're a founder, a mentor, a researcher, a writer, a speaker, and a co-host of the Double Ds Discovery Diaries podcast, and an expert in resilience. And your latest podcast episode, you were saying, was interviewing a Holocaust survivor.
Yes, it was really interesting because we had a previous guest who, Lawrence Brown, so he lived in the northwest of Western Australia in the 60s and 70s, and he had a very popular episode on our podcast. And he was 89 when we interviewed him, and he invited me and my husband over to Adelaide for his 90th birthday, where he went skydiving. And at that birthday party, I met Andrew Steiner, who was 92 and had been in Hungary during World War II and in a Jewish family, and he really wanted to be interviewed because he felt that there's a lot of things going on in the world at the moment where some of the lessons of the Holocaust and how it all started and unfolded are really relevant today.
Yes, so, yes, they've been forgotten. The new generation does not know or had not experienced how these things evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a theory, the power of one. Everyone has a power of one. So every person has the ability to do something for the good or something for evil. And he spoke about there was one day where there was a bomb alert and everyone was going to this bunker, which was underneath part of the city. And everyone was racing in there and he wasn't allowed to go in because they all had to wear a Jewish Star of David.
Yeah.
And another person who wasn't Jewish stood up for him and said, no, this is my friend and he is coming in here, and wouldn't let the guard keep him out. And he said his life was probably saved by that. So individually sometimes we feel like we can't do anything because these world forces are so much stronger, but individually we can make a difference.
Isn't it crazy that 92 years later, he's telling the story of that one decision by one person to save his life?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's episode 27 of our...
I'm going to have to go have a listen to that. It sounds amazing. And I was just thinking recently, I wonder if there are any Holocaust survivors still around, but yeah, there are.
Yes, well, he lives in Adelaide and he's actually formed his life's mission project is to open up the Holocaust Museum in Adelaide. And so there's a few people that are still alive in Adelaide that have shared their stories in the museum, and he's one of them as well.
We need to extract all those stories while we can, don't we? While there's still a few around that remember it, and to remind everyone about the crazy stuff that's happening now.
Yes.
Yeah, well, fascinating. And talking about lifequakes, the Holocaust was one massive lifequake for everyone involved, wasn't it? And especially the victims. But Donna, you were drawn to do this work because of your own lifequake.
Yes.
And if you wouldn't mind giving us a little overview of what that meant for you and how that unfolded.
Yeah, so I sort of say there's a trilogy in my story of my workplace-related lifequake. So part one was in late 2021. So I worked in a government department in quite a senior position, and I was dragged into a corruption and crime commission case in late 2021. And when I had to go to this hearing, I was accused of all these things. I went into complete and utter shock. And as I was being questioned, I came to realise that a group of people I worked with were involved in coming up with these allegations, and to say the betrayal, the shock, the devastation. And that was really when I really hit rock bottom.
But just to clarify, those allegations against you were to cover up something that they had been involved. Were you the scapegoat?
No, not at that point. That was accusations that they had come up with. But I knew when I was being questioned that there was just none of it was true at all. But it was very, very traumatic. And when you go to the Corruption and Crime Commission, they tell you that if you speak to anyone about this, you'll be put in jail immediately.
Wow.
And so you're very isolated. I couldn't even talk to my doctor at the time, and then was able to get
medical professionals are included in that.
Yes, that's right. And eventually I was able to get special permission and exemption to be able to talk to my doctor. But it's very isolating, very frightening.
So your husband didn't know any of this at the time?
He knew a little bit because he was there when they arrived at the front door, which was good. But so after that,
to your home?
Yes, they did.
The Corruption Crime Commission?
Yes, the Corruption and Crime Commission.
Which is in itself very intrusive, isn't it, that they come to you?
It is really frightening, and I think it's sort of the system is set up for it to be frightening. But the problem is if you've done something wrong, like there was a public servant who, stole around $24 million and is in prison at the moment. So he knew when they came for him what he'd done.
Yeah.
But if you actually haven't done anything and you've just been inadvertently dragged into it, it is extremely frightening and extremely traumatic. And it took a really long time for me to recover from that. And I sort of really had to look for tools and strategies and seek support. But 9 months later, we got a letter saying that the case was no longer confidential. And there was no report done, which essentially suggests that no one had actually done anything wrong. So that was the end of lifequake number 1, and I thought that was the end.
What was the motivation of the colleagues to make these allegations against you? Do you think?
Look, I'm not sure. I don't think it was completely all malice. I think there's some systemic issues.
Right.
They say, often you think things are malice and it's incompetence and it's systemic issues. So I think all of those factors played a part. But the impact of the people involved in the case, so I think there was 4 or 5 of us involved. It was very, very traumatic. So after we were able to talk about it and then we uncovered more about what had happened, I thought that was it. And then I got dragged into an internal departmental investigation about exactly the same issues. And I thought that would be almost a formality at the beginning because it was very clear cut and I was able to demonstrate I hadn't done anything wrong. But so that was in November 2022. And then in April 2023, I found I was suspended from work on full pay.
Had you been working through this time of Quake?
Yes, I had. And at that point, I'd been working in the department for about 25 years. So I started there as a graduate. So,
all of my career.
And I was sort of known as a very hard worker and things like that. And I've since found out that sometimes being a hard worker can make you a target as well. And then once I got suspended from work, that was kind of my second lifequake and defending myself again and getting a team of lawyers and things like that. But I was really determined not to give up because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. And so I ended up being suspended from work for a total of 809 days. So that was well over 2 years.
Yeah, almost. Well, 2.5.
So I was basically not allowed to work, isolated from the workplace for well over 2 years. And then my name was finally cleared in June 2025.
So just 6 months ago.
It was untenable for me to go back. After all of that. So
no, talk about PTSD or going back into the workplace where it all happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was the second part, was being suspended and having to fight to have your innocence proven.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And sort of the third piece, which hasn't really begun yet, is, why did all this occur and seeking some justice. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. And is that a personal quest that you want to pursue because you're seeking to understand what happened and make sense of everything?
Yeah, just I have uncovered quite a lot about why it did occur.
Okay.
But none of that sort of come to light just at the moment.
So are you hoping to make that public knowledge or just?
I think there's still a lot. Put it this way, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. But the goal there for you is to help change the system that created these problems, or is that what's?
Well, I think it's justice for me personally because I had a very significant legal costs and quite a lot of medical costs as well because obviously I was referred to a psychiatrist to kind of get through the stress and the pressure. And then also there's other people that have been targeted as well. So it's sort of justice for all of us.
Right.
And then just for some of these issues to be really, really looked at closely to avoid anything like this happening again to other people.
Yeah, got it. So potentially compensation as well for the last 3-4 years. It's a 4-year process from beginning to end?
Yeah, so the first bit sort of started in late 2021.
Yeah.
So, I actually I thought about New Year this year thinking, it's been 5 years. It's 5 New Years ago since I wasn't dealing with, having to defend myself and clear my name and things like that. So,
which is like 10% of your life, isn't it? Or it's a big chunk of time in your life, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that's been something I've had to develop, because this was one of my weaknesses before, is patience, and so much out of my control, especially the time frames and things like that. So I've just really had to become a lot more patient, and which I think is a positive overall, because I was probably someone who got quite frustrated and always wanted to get things done fast before.
Yeah, this is possibly not the way you wanted to develop patience, but it's a positive side effect. Yeah, and so you've since gone on to sort of explore the concept of lifequakes and how this affects people. And the reason I wanted to get you on our show was for small business owners who might be going through a lifequake, and meaning a big traumatic event or life-changing event that you kind of have to keep soldiering on and putting up the mask of I'm fine, but behind the scenes everything's, you're dealing with a lifequake. I sort of see these lifequakes a little bit like a real earthquake, in that there's kind of a Richter scale. Yeah. And there's certain things that are, like, for example, the suicide of a loved one or something like that, and then it's just destroys your entire world and there's no way you can keep going. And then other times other things will happen and it still can be difficult, but you can keep going in a way. Interesting. The Richter scale. Yeah, so it's different scales. So you'd have suicide at the top, which is like a 10 on the Richter scale, right? Huge earthquake. And like you say, then there's just devastation. You can't actually move on at that point. Everything gets put on hold while you deal with the aftermath. But yeah, it's like I was talking to a counsellor this week, and he says, I call trauma, he said, it's a sliding scale as well. And he said, you've got big T's and little T's. But sometimes people underestimate the little T's or the cumulative effect of lots of little traumas.
Yes, exactly.
But it's all trauma at the end of the day. And I guess you're sort of talking, a lifequake is a significant traumatic event that happens. What are some other examples of trauma, lifequakes that you've experienced? Obviously, you've interviewed the Holocaust survivor. That's an obvious one.
Yeah. I think it's been really interesting on the podcast. I've also was holding some workshops last year, and by providence, one of the workshops, all of the participants had recently been through cancer treatment. And so that was really interesting, and I actually learnt a lot myself listening to what they were all saying, because it was one of those things where I think, beforehand they maybe thought, we've got this treatment and then we'll be fine and life will go back to normal. Yeah. And I think the reality was that, that's not the case, and it takes a long time to recover, and then you've got a lot of other kind of medical appointments and ongoing medications and just energy management and just so many things. So that was really good. And I think one of the big takeaways for me was, the need to get some support. And ideally it's great to have support from people that have either going through the same thing as you or have been. Yeah.
Where they've got the empathy and understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And there's lots of other things. There's obviously, with my own personal story, there's been a lot of people that have approached me who've had workplace-related things going on, like bullying or being targeted. There's like suicides. A lot of different things that people go through. I mean, I think everyone in their life, especially the older you are, there's going to be something that happens.
And I think that you were saying also the definition of a lifequake is it's unexpected. It comes from nowhere and it creates this shock that you were talking about. So there's that process of dealing with the shock.
This podcast is brought to you by my weekly newsletter, which is Donna's Balcony Views newsletter. This is a short weekly free newsletter that I write with the theme of building resilience and improving wellbeing. It contains 2 things I've experienced, 2 things I've learnt from others, such as speakers, podcasts, books or articles, and a personal story from someone else about what they do for their resilience or their wellbeing.
What I love about your newsletter, Donna, is it's really bite-sized and it's extremely easy to read. In a couple of minutes, I've got some great resources and some little tips that I might try. And I read it this morning again, and it just gave me some idea of what I could focus on, some morning questions and some evening questions, and I'm really enjoying it.
If you would like to sign up for my weekly newsletter, my free weekly newsletter, go to my personal website, which is www.donnasbalconyviews.com.au, or on Instagram at Donna's Balcony Views.
You were explaining before about the different sort of stages of moving through a lifequake, and you mentioned survival mode is the first port of call.
Yeah, these were kind of just through my own experiences of going through this kind of thing twice. And yeah, I call it kind of survival mode. You know, when after I went to the Corruption and Crime Commission the first time, I mean, I was an absolute wreck, and I was actually struggling to get out of bed. So from that point of view, you know, those first week or two was, you know, getting myself out of bed. Yeah. And I there was a coffee van about 1 kilometre from my house, so I would get up and say, right, I'm going to walk to the coffee van, and that was my main goal. But I know people, I mean, I haven't experienced myself losing like someone to suicide or something, but I think these survival mode can really go, take months or years, depending on what's happened to you. So.
Yeah, it was when you were talking about my most recent lifequake is the divorce, and that's why I was curious to talk with you about the lasting impacts that something like that can have. But as you were talking about not being able to get out of bed, it took me back to my first miscarriage at 12 weeks, losing a pregnancy. We went in for the 12-week scan, thinking we could finally tell everybody, and then the baby was lifeless, and the shock of that, and that's not being able to actually just get out of bed, and just not wanting to even wake up, those sort of traumatic events.
That must have been really so difficult.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I couldn't talk about it for years. I mean, I still feel the emotion rising now, but
yes.
Yeah, I think so. There's obviously, once you get through that survival period, which is just any strategies, like you say, that can help you get through the day. The sole focus at that time is getting through the day, right?
Yeah. And I think, just one little step at a time, and just realising these things are really big events in your life, and you just can't carry on as you.
Yeah, and I think that it'd be interesting. It was probably the same for you after that miscarriage. The first, we ended up having two, but the first one, I did what I'd always done, which is put the mask on, go back to work. I'm fine, and like nobody knew. It was just my secret that I was carrying, or burden that I was carrying, and then, you rock up to work, do your job, and then you're really, really struggling behind the scenes. But you have, for some reason, you still feel you have to maintain this facade. And then it happened again about 6 months later, and that time I couldn't even muster the energy to put the mask on anymore. It's like, I'm just done now. I can't even pretend to be okay anymore, Yeah, so it's interesting.
Just on miscarriages, we interviewed someone on our podcast, this woman called Sarah, and she, her baby was born but died after 90 minutes.
Oh, I cannot imagine, Yeah,
and it was so insightful because, she just talked about how it's not really something that's discussed, and she sort of talked, and then she met a lot of people with miscarriages as well since, and she said that people just don't talk to her, weren't talking to her about her baby, and they were talking about everything else except for the most important,
the one thing she needed help with. Yeah,
and she said she thought it was because people didn't want to upset her.
Yeah,
but she said, I'm thinking about it 24/7 anyway. And so I think that was a really important message just for listeners to hear how important it is to talk.
To acknowledge it. And you might feel, and you can just say, I don't know what to say, but I just want to acknowledge that I'm so sorry for what happened. And it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? And by people not acknowledging this elephant, it makes it harder for the person dealing with the trauma.
I don't know how you felt, Kate, but did you sort of, looking back, think that it was better when you kind of shared the news, or better?
Yes. The first time I fell pregnant, we did what most people do. You keep it secret. And, the 12-week scan is meant to be the time when you can, celebrate. And because we went through that experience, I, at that point, had to tell friends and family because I was just so devastated. I couldn't turn up to events, or I couldn't, just.
Yes.
And so then you think, why did I keep it a secret? Because now I'm telling everyone anyway, and it's bad news. Do you know what it's?
Yeah.
So, and so why do we hold it a secret? And then it really, ended up telling them out of necessity more than. Yeah. I mean, I didn't tell everyone, obviously, but most people, I don't think work even knew, actually. Looking back, I don't think I told them what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's that balance. This was, 15 years ago. There's that balance between wanting to keep your job and them to think that you're still functional and because it's your livelihood versus, them, especially in the engineering world, if you show that kind of weakness, you might be a risk to their chain of, productivity or whatever. So do you know what I mean? I was scared about losing my job, I suppose. Yeah. But the second time round, we told everyone that we're pregnant again. And then because I needed that moral support during that 12 weeks trying to get through, but then the same thing happened again. But I have 2 healthy boys now, so I'm so extremely grateful, but definitely talking with people about it released the burden somewhat. You've got to have people, empathetic, loving, kind people in your corner, would you say? Like, that's just makes sense.
Definitely. I mean, the support is just so, so crucial. And that's why this whole secrecy of the Corruption and Crime Commission.
Yes, because you can't talk.
No, it's a massive issue I believe, to do with mental health. So I've actually been discussing with a professor from the University of Western Australia about looking into it with a more formal study. Because, potentially they may not realise
the mental health impacts. Yeah,
and how devastating it is not to be able to discuss it.
That whole process sounded brutal. Like you're isolated, which is the number one, difficult for mental health, and then you're not allowed to speak or process or talk about what you're going through, which is how we heal or process stuff. So that you're isolated and you're not allowed to talk. That's extremely damaging, isn't it, for someone?
Yeah, it does have big, big impacts. And I think I can understand why they've got those rules in place, because if something is going on, they don't want people to go around and warn other people and things like that. But I'm not sure they've really considered the unintended devastating consequences, especially on people that haven't actually done anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, logically, it makes sense that process should take place, but from a humane perspective, it doesn't seem very humane at all, does it? Yeah, they've got to somehow balance that out.
Yeah, I think also just sort of seeing people and being involved with this, the ones that have kind of bottled it up and haven't really spoken about it, I'm not sure that is necessarily the best strategy in the longer term.
No,
because it's still there, the trauma's still there, it's just bottled up and it'll come out. I sort of feel like it will come out at some point.
Yeah, I always think of it as like a balloon that you try and push underwater. The deeper you push it, with more force it comes out, or a beach ball or something that you push down. And if you keep trying to push it further, the further down you push it, with the more force it comes back with, right?
Yeah. And I think also if you don't have, a lot of people don't have close friends or family, then, I would sort of suggest getting that professional help. Like my doctor was just so amazing, and then she got me on to the psychiatrist. But even just hiring lawyers, it means that someone's in your corner as well.
Yeah. And in terms of strategies, well, firstly, the impact. So you and we were talking before the show, I was saying how, my recent divorce, the after effects of that have taken much longer than I ever anticipated. And I'm sure that's something you see in common in lifequakes, like with the cancer patients and so on. It's not, we go and get treatment and then, we're better again. It's like there's a whole shift in identity. There's a whole shift in your life philosophy. There's everything shifts in a lifequake, right? Like you say, it's this big, everything trembles and there's like this shift, and then what I've struggled with after coming out of that is, well, who am I now? And also just the grieving process was, we've been physically separated 2 years now, but I finally moved into my new apartment a year ago. And so that was sort of the end of financial untangling and dealing with all the logistical stuff that comes with untangling two lives for 25 years. And then got into my house, thought, I'm going to have a housewarming party. And then the grief just hit. And then I was out for about 3 months. I could barely, again, I felt like I was in survival mode. I could barely get out of bed. I could barely function. And so it sounds like it goes in waves, right? Any recovery from a...
And I think there's a couple of things, like one in particular that I've sort of noticed with people is just realising how long these things can take.
And the impact, the extent of the...
And there will be ups and downs. And I think generally I'm in a good place at the moment, but every now and again I feel this grief because my career is being destroyed. I love my job. I was there for 25 years. Yeah. And you miss the people, or you miss the projects,
and you're grieving what was your vision of the future, and
exactly. And I think it's important to realise that that's completely normal, and of course you're going to grieve because there's been this massive change, and it's not going to ever come back. So I think just sort of sit with the grief and think, well, I'm going to be sad for a while, or And the other thing I find is people can be very, very hard on themselves. Sometimes they sort of say, they almost chastise themselves. Why aren't I over this yet? And I should be recovered by now, and things like that. Yeah. But that's where I sort of suggest that, how would you treat your best friend if your best friend was going through what you're going through? I'm sure you wouldn't be saying to your best friend,
snap out of it.
Get your attitude together.
It's further along by now.
Your whole life's been tipped upside down, but just get on with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really find that we're all can be very hard on ourselves.
And that sounds like something you developed out of like you said before the lifequake, you were very driven, task-oriented, get stuff done. You didn't have a lot of patience. And now it sounds like you've got a level of self-compassion because these waves of grief do come, and you're more giving yourself permission to actually process and work through those waves of grieving, rather than, come on, stop now, get on with it, and you've got work to do, sort of thing.
That's right. And I mean, sometimes, some days, I'm very sort of like, right, let's get going on these new things that I'm doing. But then other days, I think it's completely normal. That you do have ups and downs.
And so it just comes out of the blue for you that your mood might just shift and change, and it
usually can be something unexpected. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this on other podcasts and in books and things about, especially when they've lost their life partner, especially if they've died. They might have had a week or 2 weeks where they're actually feeling quite good, and then they might see something in the supermarket that
triggers a memory.
It is something they used to eat together, or just brings back a memory, and then they sort of almost feel like they're back to square one again.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's everyone goes through those different points.
Yeah. And what sort of strategies have helped you? You said medical support has been an absolute critical thing for you.
Yeah, I just so I think the friends and family have been really important, and especially the group that's also been targeted, because we've all gone through.
I actually didn't realise there was more of you. I had for some reason I thought it was they targeted you, but there's a few of you going through.
Yeah, there was. I guess I was the person that kind of held on by far the longest. But there's been a number of people overall, probably up to 9 or 10 who've been.
So you all were suspended from work?
No. I was the only one who was. There was one other person, but I was the only one that was suspended for such a long period.
Maybe that's the part that I thought was, and And that feels a bit like scapegoatism or to me, that you were targeted as the one to be suspended, that they could say, well, this person's at fault, so they've now been suspended.
Yeah, I've just got I've got a few theories on what happened occurred, but I may or may not be right. So I better not.
But the others, have they experienced this quake to the extent that you have?
I think different people have experienced it differently. Like some people have been more open in speaking out, others haven't. But
and are they all still working?
No.
Everyone's left the.
Pretty much most people have left. Yeah, I mean, others have taken years to recover as well. Yeah.
And when you're working with someone who's been through a life quake, how do you, what does that look like?
Well, I think that it's so because I was with in my old job for 28 years in the end, you see the life cycles of people. And I think sometimes people kind of look at things and they go, oh, that person's not being very productive this month. But I think when you look at the whole of the life cycle, you think, well, hang on a sec, maybe something's going on in their life because, a year ago, they were, a great worker and everything. And I think about some of the people I've worked with, they've gone, on the whole, have always been fantastic workers, but then everyone goes through different stages of life. Like they might have a child with an illness or going through a divorce as you did or an illness themselves, and a lot of people have got to take care of their ageing parents. And I think you've got to take all those sorts of things into account because when you're going through that sort of stuff, you can't expect that becomes such an important priority. Yeah, that you can't expect.
All your focus and energy is being drawn to something else.
I think a workplace is the whole person. And there could be something going on at the workplace as well that might be impacting on them.
Yeah. So, when someone comes to you and they're going through a life quake, how do you help them move through that or work through that?
Yeah, just sort of a lot of it's just someone to listen to.
Someone who understands and gets it, Yeah,
and often I find when people start talking about it, and I found this, I was on a panel last weekend with two women from the US who had gone through similar sorts of things. It's actually quite cathartic, and as you start talking it through, you come to realisation that, the people that are talking are coming to realisations themselves, and I think it really, really helps. But when I was after I'd been suspended for about 2 months, so in mid-June 2023, I just had this absolutely massive panic attack.
Right.
And I had a couple of them in the interim, but I just woke up and I was just an absolute wreck. I was crying uncontrollably and just really in a massive panic attack. And sort of later that day, it was sort of the end of the road. I was like, right, that is it. I am not letting these people impact on me in this way anymore.
Right.
I said, everything is out of my control, but I can control my reaction to it and to what they're doing. And so I think at that week I sort of started training for a marathon because I had the time. And I also I do a weekly newsletter about building resilience and improving wellbeing. And I started it that week because pretty much for myself, I thought if I start researching articles on how to help build myself up, then that would be
I need to sign up for your newsletter. So you do a weekly,
weekly or fortnightly, but so and over time it's grown with the amount of people that are receiving it.
Beautiful. And these are resilience conversations or thoughts and ideas that you have around resilience.
Yeah, so usually I just sort of say one thing I've learned from experience, so something I've done that week, and then something from someone else, so either a podcast or a book or something that I've learnt from another person. And then I have something about the podcast, some of our guests on the podcast, and then somebody else, I call it one view from a friend, so someone will contribute a story about what they do for their own well-being and their own resilience.
And where can someone sign up for that?
Just on my webpage on the
donnasbalconyviews.com.au.
Yeah, just on the homepage there's a sign up. So
beautiful. Yeah. And we're almost at the end of our time together, but so there's lots of ways Donna can help you if you're going through a lifequake. So signing up for the newsletter would be one, just to get all those, tips and tricks or insights around building resilience. And it sounds like purpose and meaning is something that's helped you get through. So you said you signed up for a marathon. It gave you a goal to work towards. And then your weekly newsletter gives you some structure to focus on every week. So that's been a big part for you.
I think two other things that helped me enormously. One was getting outside and exercising every day. That just helps so much with the fresh air and just the moving your body. I think moving your body can really move your energy, mind and energy as well. Yeah. And the other thing was having a structure. So I sort of running on one day, and I actually set up a walking group because all the people I'd usually hang out with were at work. So I started off a walking group on a Tuesday morning to meet some new people. And so I think it is good. I have found that people, especially going through workplace related ones, which can be sort of people feel a bit of shame and they become very isolated. But I would say, keep up your social side of things and learning new things.
It's important, I think, like you say, to find people who understand what you're going through. So your walking group is inviting people that are going through a similar thing, because it's similar with just on the divorce front. A lot of the friends of mine who are still happily married avoid the conversation with me or don't want to talk about it, or it's just uncomfortable, but the ones where I can really talk freely and deeply and genuinely are fellow divorcees, and now, I seem to keep attracting them everywhere.
I find that with people who've got cancer as well, because no one else.
Find your people,
no one else can help someone who's about to start cancer treatment than someone who's already been
through it.
And that's sort of why I've started sort of supporting and mentoring people, because if my difficult experience can help other people, then
absolutely. And I think there's a real niche there for workplace trauma that for you, right? Like you said, you've been invited on this panel in the US to talk specifically about that. And it's such a widespread thing that often doesn't get talked about. So
I think it's a lot of stuff with this is hidden in the shadows, partly because people don't want to talk about it. They fear of backlash. And then also a lot of people have had to sign non-disclosure agreements as well.
Yeah. And plus, it's your livelihood, isn't it? It's your salary, so you've got to tread carefully. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So finding your people is you're saying structure, getting outside in nature, moving your body, finding people who can understand and support you on the journey. They're all really good strategies, and most of all, understanding that the ripple effects of the earth, or the aftershocks, is that what they call it with an earthquake? The aftershocks, and they can extend years and years beyond the impact and beyond the situation, I meant to say. And then having compassion for yourself that is perfectly normal. And I think you said allow yourself to feel the grief and yeah,
absolutely. I've found it very useful writing as well, just in a journal. I know not everyone enjoys that, but that really helped me. Right at the beginning, when I was at my worst, I would just write down 3 small things I was grateful for that day. And that really helped, because these lifequakes are so all-encompassing. It's really hard to think about anything else.
Yeah, and you forget to see the small wonders.
Yeah, but I was like, hang on a sec, I've still got a loving family, loving friend. And it helps you to sort of see the perspective that this isn't the end of the world. It's a big part of your life, but there's other things that you can be grateful for.
Yeah, and you've got a beautiful husband that he's been your rock through all of it, as I understand.
He's been incredible. Him and my mum as well. My mum's been very, very supportive. But just I've been very, very lucky to have a lot of people supporting me behind the scenes. So.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your work. And so if people want to connect with you, there's the newsletter, there's your website, donnasbalconyviews.com.au. You've got the Double Ds Diaries podcast.
Yes.
If anyone's experienced a lifequake, can they reach out to you to potentially come on your podcast?
Yeah, for sure. Just send me through an email. And yeah, we were always looking for, so far we've been mostly doing in-person recordings.
Right.
So we've mostly done recordings with people based in Western Australia. But yes, we've had all sorts of different people who've gone through. Well,
so if you're in WA,
Yeah. I was just going to say we had one man who, speaking of very traumatic lifequakes, he was in the Boxing Day tsunami. And it actually took him up to the 20th anniversary, which was last year, before he felt ready to tell his story. It was a really powerful story. He actually literally proposed to his girlfriend while walking on the beach in Sri Lanka, and then less than half an hour later they were hit with the tsunami. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different things that people go through in their lives, and it's, really...
It's incredible to have survived that.
Oh, absolutely. And so many people around them didn't. So, I think, and the other thing is, if you're going through a lifequake, you're not alone.
Yeah. Reach out to Donna. She can help you.
I know. Well, I think it's good to know that there's other people that are going through similar things,
Yeah. So. And it helps to talk about it and get the support you need. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you making time for us this morning, and wishing you so much love and luck on your journey as you go forward.
Thanks so much, Kate, and thank you for sharing some of your lifequakes as well.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening in. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, Sam, or Kate, you can find me at digitalsisters.com, and that's sisters spelt with a Y, or reach out to Kate at katedejong.com. Have a great day.
So, Donna, thank you for sharing your story. And I got first listen as the other Double D, the other D. And, what really struck me, each of us will have a different response, was I've been on the journey a little bit with you. And just to hear, I guess, the steadiness in your voice, to hear, I guess, the integrity and the grace about what you shared, and also what you didn't share, and the wisdom in that. And I was just really struck about where you have been and where you are now. What was it like for you to tell the story and be able to tell the story 2 years after you first tried to?
Yeah, I think it was really liberating. And when I was going through that process of being suspended from work for 809 days, you're very much not allowed to talk to anyone. It's very isolating. You're basically in the shadows, and you don't get to say your side of the story and how these so-called processes impact on people. And I have had a lot of people contact me from around the world going through difficult workplace-related things, so that sort of also inspired me to share my story. Plus, there's just so many systemic things that can be improved. And obviously justice is my word for 2026 as well. So So that's part of the reason as well. But it was liberating, and I just hope that people can understand a bit more about all these shadowy events that we weren't allowed to talk about, but now we can. So people have more clarity on what actually occurred and the massive impact it had on people, including me. And
and hopefully people will also see just that grit that has got you through, and obviously your newsletter and you share regularly in that, I guess, part of your journey and all the things that have supported you and continue to support you, because it doesn't stop just because the case or the circumstances have stopped. It's actually, I'm assuming, an ongoing investment in yourself to stay well and to keep building your resilience.
Absolutely. And I think, I've built my resilience up, but these things do take a long, long time, years and years, and there'll be something that will happen that will trigger me and things like that. So it's all a healing process. But I also want people that were involved that didn't contact me for years, literally years, to for me to be able to share what it did to me. And, basically it's a good thing to not keep stories untold inside of you. And then if it helps other people, which I hope it will, then that's positive thing as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Donna. And do feel free to reach out to Donna if you've been impacted by the story, or to post on our socials, but also personally to reach out to Donna if you'd like to be in touch about some of the programs that she can offer.
Thanks so much, Di, and thanks for listening to the Double Ds. If you know anyone that might benefit, share the episode or give us some feedback. Until next time.
Until then.